Here are 14 details in Pokemon you probably didn't understand as a kid. Number 1. The pervert in Celadon City. One of the moments you probably missed as a kid was in the original Pokemon Red and Blue and their sequels Fire Red and Leaf Green. Now there's an old man standing right in front of Celadon City Gym. This gym is famously led by the Grass-type gym leader Erica, and it's filled with exclusively female trainers. But if you take a closer look and you talk to the old man, he actually tells you, hee, this gym is great, it's full of women, implying that he's peeking into the gym through a window to spy on the female trainers inside. Now as a kid, this might have seemed like a quirky or a funny line, but looking back at it, it's a bit of a questionable and suggestive moment. This guy is definitely a pervert. Adult jokes on the Unova Ferris wheel. Now the Unova region's Ferris wheel in Pokemon Black and White and its sequels Black 2 and White 2 hides a slightly suggestive detail that many players might have missed out on as kids. In Nimbasa City, you have the opportunity to battle trainers and then share a ride with them after on the Ferris wheel, after you beat them. Depending on the season and the gender of your character, the trainer you face actually changes, and each trainer sort of has unique lines they talk to. But one particularly uncomfortable trainer is Hiker Andy, also known as Hiker Anthony in the original Japanese. Now he only appears if you're playing as a male character during the summer season. In the game, his dialogue during the Ferris wheel is filled with flirtation, and he asks you if you've ever had a lover, and subtly hints at a romantic interest. The vibe just comes off as him hitting on the player, which gives the scene an oddly suggestive undertone that's also slightly creepy. It is extremely inappropriate because the player is supposed to be a kid who's just started their Pokemon journey, and Hiker Andy is a hiker with a beard in his mid-30s or 40s. Interestingly, in Black 2 and White 2, Hiker Andy actually returns, but this time his encounter is with a female character, and he's talking about a long-lost love 2 years ago, obviously referring to the events of the previous game. Now, although these comments are a bit weird, they did remove this in the English versions, and it's only in the Japanese versions. The Onyx and Cloyster couple. In Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, players encounter a seemingly normal couple, Duff and Ida, who use an Onyx and a Cloyster in battle. At first glance, it appears to be an innocent matchup, a normal battle. But fans have long pointed out that their Pokemon hint to a little something extra, because the guy has an Onyx, and that resembles something for guys, and the girl has a Cloyster, and that resembles something for girls. And it feels like the developers threw this in as a subtle joke to anyone who would get it. Also, the fact that both of these trainers are in a relationship makes it even more obvious that this was planned and they're not just two random Pokemon. Next up, we have Olivia's room. Now in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, players can visit the bedroom of Olivia, who's the Akala Island Kahuna, where they can find a collection of Stuffle toys. Now if you click on any of these toys, it will read the description. It's one of those Stuffle toys that can move. They're particularly popular among single women. Now the implication here is subtle, but some players have interpreted this as a slightly inappropriate implication, making this seemingly innocent item stand out in a game which is otherwise for kids. I mean, it's quite obvious what this toy is made for. Pokemon can marry humans. Now in Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and the remakes, there's an interesting entry found in a book in Sinnoh's Canaleve library. It's known as Sinnoh Folk Story number 3. Now in the original Japanese versions of the game, if you translate the dialogue, it suggests that humans and Pokemon used to marry each other, implying a much deeper bond between the two species in ancient times. Although this was toned down in the English version, the idea remains fascinating and slightly bizarre at the same time. But if you think about it, if humans used to marry Pokemon, that might be how you get Pokemon like Jynx, Machamp, or Gardevoir. The next one is somewhat of a legend and not really confirmed because I couldn't find any footage of it, but in Pokemon Emerald's Battle Frontier, supposedly there's a moment where a man comments on his daughter's battling skills, and if you talk to him, he's supposed to say, "You're just like your mother, so you'll be dominating." Now this line, which is supposed to refer to his abilities in battle, comes off with a slightly suggestive double meaning. And although I couldn't find it because there's so many NPCs in the Battle Frontier, people have said this exists and there's numerous posts and Reddit threads on this line. If anyone in the comments has any experience with these NPCs, please let me know down below. But it is one of those lines that make you rethink once you're playing the game as an adult. The guy in prison over a Pokemon. Now, there have been images circulating over the internet of a man locked up in prison, and the text bubble appears above him, and it says, "Come on, man, if you had a Gardevoir like me, you'd have done it too." This odd remark implies something very inappropriate and disgusting about his relationship with the Pokemon Gardevoir, which is a species depicted with like a humanoid appearance. And although obviously this line is meant as a joke, there is plausible reason that the guy could be in prison for what he did to the Pokemon. Now, I highly doubt this is a real game. This seems to be a fan game, but nevertheless, the image has made rounds on the internet. Brock in the anime. The next one is from the anime, and it features Brock, a character notorious for his infatuation with girls, particularly Nurse Joy. Now, in the episode The Double Trouble Header in Johto, after meeting a young trainer named Cassie, he makes a rather unusual comment. He says, and I quote, "She'll be fun in 8 years." Now, this was in the original Japanese, but it did get cut out of the English dub for how inappropriate it sounded. But it raises some eyebrows because this girl is younger than Ash, and Brock should not be talking like that. And I know this channel is called Brock's Corner, but that is not the Brock that I support. Sword and Shield Pokekid. The next one is a Pokekid from the game's Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, this Pokekid says, "Kneel before me. My mother always says that to my dad." This line might sound a bit innocent at first, but it has a playful undertone that hints at a more dynamic relationship between his parents, and it leaves a lot of players to wonder about what's actually going on here behind the scenes. It's a surprising moment that the developers added in as probably a joke towards the older audience, and it's a bit humorous and funny at the same time. Riding in Onix. In Pokemon X and Y, there's a woman who makes a seemingly innocent comment about the Pokemon Onix. She says, "Wow, amazing, Onix is so big. Riding on an Onix would be so fun." Now, sure, this might come off as a straightforward expression, like she just wants to ride an Onix, but it can take on a slightly different meaning if you pause and think about it just for a second. Primeape's Iron Tail. The next one is from Pokepark, Pikachu's Adventure, where a Primeape makes a curious statement while teaching Pikachu the move Iron Tail. It says, "I mastered Iron Tail without a tail." And do you know what that means? Now, at first glance, you don't really know what he's saying here, but once again, if you think about it, some players have suggested there could be a slightly more inappropriate interpretation. Well, the implication is that if Primeape is male, he may have used something else to learn the move Iron Tail. Now, this one is a bit more unclear whether they added it on purpose or people have just misinterpreted an innocent statement into being inappropriate, but it still raises some eyebrows nonetheless. When Brock met Cynthia. The next one is again from Brock, who's on a roll today. Now, Brock's well-known affection for the ladies is known throughout the show, but it takes a bold turn in the episode Top-Down Training. Now, in this episode, the gang encounters Cynthia, the Sinnoh League Pokemon champion, and she's seen in a battle, eating an ice cream cone. As Cynthia licks her ice cream cone, Brock cannot help but make a certain comment. Now, as we all know, this is just Brock being Brock. This is how he normally acts, but it still is an interesting moment. Now, the final one includes the Ace sisters, Irene, Jen, and Kate from Generation 2. When you encounter them on Route 34 of Johto after you get the move Surf and go to the hidden area, they challenge you. And the reason they challenge you is because apparently they caught you peeping in on them while they were doing something like sunbathing, which adds a bit of an awkward twist to the battle. However, in Generation 4, the dialogue was removed in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and they changed it to suggest that they were simply training instead of doing that. But they didn't change everything. The sisters are still mad at you for something, even if the context changed. Now, those were 14 moments in Pokemon that you now understand that you're now an adult. Anyway, thanks for watching. Give a thumbs up and please subscribe. Peace out.